We've got 2 points, 3, 5, and 5, 8, and we want to find the distance between them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plot these points just so I can get a feel for what it is I'm doing. So first of all, let's get this point 3, 5. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go to the right 3 and up 5. All right, so to the right 3, up 5 is going to put me here. And then the other point is 5, 8. So I'm going to go to the right 5 and up 8. Now that's going to put me here. And I want to find this distance right here. That's what we're looking for. We've got a formula for this. Here's the formula. I'll start by writing the formula. It's the square root of, now it's the quantity x2 minus x1 squared plus the quantity y2 minus y1 squared. Take the square root of that. Let's look at this formula and make sure we understand it. Now here's what these variables are. x2 is maybe like the second x value. x1 is the first x value. So when you look up here, you have this, just as I read left to right, it doesn't actually matter which way you go. But as I read left to right, the first x I see is 3. So I'm going to call this x1. It's the first x I see. And then as I keep looking, right, that's the first y. Matter of fact, I think I'll just write that. This is the first y. Keep going. That's the second x I see. So this is going to be the second x. And then as I keep going, that 8 is the second y. So that's going to be the y2. So these subscripts, those are just identifiers. This just identifies that this is the first x, the first y, the second x, and the second y. And here's what the formula says to do. Take the difference between the two x's. All right, so let's do this. Be the square root of, all right, second x minus first x. Now, it's the second x, well, that's a 5, minus the first x, which is a 3. So this is going to be 5 minus 3, and then I'll square that difference. Then I'm going to add this difference here, the difference between the two y's. Take the second y, subtract the first y. Now the second y is an 8, the first y is a 5, so we're going to get 8 minus 5 squared. All right, now let's just compute. All right, so the distance is going to be the square root of, let's work in the parentheses first. 5 minus 3 is 2 squared, plus 8 minus 5 is 3 squared. Okay, so let's square. So we'll get d is equal to 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. All right, here's the exact value. The exact value is the square root of 13. And what we're supposed to do is give an exact answer and an approximation. So we've got the exact answer. This is exact. And to get an approximation, I'm just going to put this into my calculator and take the square root of it. So in my calculator, I'm putting in square root of 13. Now when I put that into my calculator, I'm pressing square root, then I'm putting in 13. So my calculator reads like this, square root of 13, and when I press enter, it comes out 3.605551275. Now it just says an approximation. It doesn't say approximate it to 1 or 2 decimal places. How about if we just write this? How about 3.6? There's an approximation. You could write that, or you could even write 3.6, and then if I round up, how about 6.1? Okay, either one of those will do as an approximation. So here's the exact value, and here are 2 approximations. So we're saying that this distance right up here at the top right is, let me get it to right here, is the square root of 13, which is about 3.6 units. Let's find the distance between these 2 points, negative 6 and 1. Now I'm going to plot those. So negative 6 and 1. I'll start at the origin. I'm going to go to the left, 6. I think it's right there, and then up 1. So there's negative 6 and 1, right? Do you believe it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the left. to the left because of the negative, and positive 1, up because it's positive. And the next one is to the right 6, down 4. All right, so let's get that one. It's going to be the right 6, down 4. So let me plot that. To the right 6, down 4, that's going to be here. And we're looking for the distance between, well, that's a terrible line. The distance between these 2 points, right? What is that distance? So we've got a formula. In fact, the way I run things is if there's ever a formula, I always start by writing the formula. It's just like a set of directions right in front of you. Formula goes like this. Square root of the quantity x2 minus x1, or if you like, the second x minus the first x. Take that difference and square it, and then add the difference of the y's. The second y minus the first y squared. Let's substitute. So d is equal to the square root of, now second x. As I look left to right, I see this as the first x, the first y, the second x that I see, and the second y that I see. So I'm thinking this. That's the first x, that's the first y. This is the second x, this is the second y. So let's put these numbers in. This says the second x minus the first x. So the second x is a 6 minus the first x. So just be careful with all the negatives. It's going to be 6 minus quantity negative 6 squared, right? Does that work? 6 minus, there's the minus right there, the first x. And the first x is negative 6. So just be careful with those signs. All right, then plus second y, which is negative 4, minus the first y, 1, right? Okay. Second y right there, negative 4, minus. First y I see is a 1. Okay, and then I'm going to square that. Let's compute. So the distance is going to be, all right, this is actually 6 plus 6 now, squared, plus, okay, negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5 squared. Let's just do one step at a time here. So this is going to be the square root of 12 squared, plus, now, negative 5 squared. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. I can do that one. So the distance is, now, 12 squared is 144. If you're not sure, do it on your calculator. Plus 25. This is the square root of 169. And that square root comes out as an integer. This is just 13. All right, so the distance is 13 units. Oh, 13 units. All right, so if I put that on my picture over here, on my graph, that distance is 13 units. Let's find the distance between these 2 points. Now, we've got some fractions, but I'm not going to really worry about those because the way textbooks write fractions, often the denominators will go out. Now, just as I say that, it probably won't happen. But I'm not going to try to graph this because it's hard to graph those fractions. So let's just start by writing the formula. So the distance is equal to the square root of the second x minus the first x, that quantity squared, plus the second y minus the first y, that quantity squared. So this distance is going to be the square root of, now the second x. Let's go up and look here. As I look left to right, that's the first x that I see. That's the first y that I see. So I'm going to claim this is the first x, that's the first y. And as I keep moving, this is the second x I see, that's the second y I see. So this is going to be the second x and the second y. So let's substitute. So the second x is negative 6 over 11, so it's going to be negative 6 over 11 minus the first x, which is, okay, now the first x is this one here. Oh, that's also negative 6 over 11. Okay, It's that difference squared. Let me just check it, right? Second x and the first x. Oh, they're identical. So if you subtract the same number from itself, you're just going to get 0. So those fractions are going to go out. Plus, there's our plus sign, so let's get a plus in here. Okay, the second y, 4/5, minus the first y. Oh, minus -3, right? Be careful with those negative signs. All right, let's see where we are. So the distance is, now, this is going to be, I'll write it all. -6/11, negative gives us a plus 6/11 squared, plus, now this is going to be 4/5 minus negative is going to be positive 3 squared. This part is just 0. All right, so 0 squared is 0. So the distance is going to be, right, that first part is going to be a 0. Now, what is this? This is going to be plus. Now, here's the way I do this. If I have a fraction and a whole number, this works every time. Take the bottom, multiply it by the whole part. So 5 times 3, add in the top. Plus 4, put it all over the bottom. 5. All right, so bottom times the whole part, add in the top. So 15 plus 4 is 19/5. And that gets squared. So here's where we are up at the top right. The distance turns out to be now the square root of 19/5 squared. But you know, the square root of the square, they just undo each other. So if I was using the order of operations, the first thing I do is square that, and then I take the square root. Well, that just takes me right back to where I started. So the distance is 19/5 units.